Hey everybody, it's Bridgett Battles, author of Beauty in Her Battle and Style Strategist. You know what time it is? It's Thursday night, coffee with Bridgett. You know, Thursday nights is one of my favorite nights. I get the chance to hang out with you. I talk to some amazing guests and we give you some great skills. We give you a lot of information. We give you so much. But so tonight is super special because I have a special guest here with me tonight. My nephew, all the way from North Carolina, is going to be hanging out with me for a few minutes tonight. And then let me just tell you. So my exclusive guest for tonight is none other than Eric Langston, who is an amazing principal. He's going to help us. He's going to help you parents and those of us that are aunties, so that we can help our kids in school. So fashion daddies and fashion mamas, we're going to talk about this virtual thing because this is a whole new situation. So without further ado, can you help me welcome Eric Langston? Hey, Eric.
Good evening.
How's it going?
Going really well. How are you?
I'm good. It is Thursday, and I keep wanting to say Friday, but I know it's really not.
Almost Friday.
I know. So when we call it Thursday, we call it Friday Junior. So, we're almost there. So Eric, tonight, I'm super hyped. I have my nephew Chase hanging out with us for the first few minutes. And so, Eric, before I ask Chase a few questions, let's start out with, can you tell my audience a little bit about you?
Okay, fine. So my name is Eric Langston. I am born and raised in the city of Philadelphia, particularly the North Philadelphia section of the city. I was raised in a Christian home, but educated in the Philadelphia school system, and then got my bachelor's degree from Temple University, and got two more master's degrees after that.
Wait, you got two master's degrees?
I have two master's degrees.
I missed that. You real smart. Come on now.
My undergrad is in political science and history. My first master's is in organizational development and leadership. And my second master's is in educational leadership.
Wow, y'all, he's smart. Okay, he real smart. All right. So I know he got some good stuff to tell us tonight. Organizational leadership? That's a whole conversation in itself.
Whole nother conversation. I got you. I got you.
So listen, Eric, I know that you're a principal.
Mm-hmm.
So can you tell everybody what school you are the principal at?
So I have the privilege of being the principal at the Pastorius Richardson Mastery Charter School. It is in the Germantown section of the city, and I serve grades K through 8. Roughly 640 students.
Wow. So, Eric, due to the pandemic, everything is shifting, to virtual.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked Chase to come on with us for a few minutes to get started because Chase started school this week already in North Carolina, and it's virtual. So he was doing his schoolwork here today, and it was a little challenging. Mm-hmm. So I asked Chase to come on so that he can share if there are any parents out there and you want to show this to your kid. Chase is going to share a little bit about his experience tonight. So, hey, Eric Holmes, thank you for joining us. So, Chase, first of all, tell my audience what school you go to and how old you are.
I go to Phoenix Academy, and I am 11 years old, and I'm in the 6th grade currently.
So he's in the 6th grade, which means this is his first year of middle school that you started virtually. So now, Chase, now that you're in school, virtually, can you tell my audience a little bit about your first day of school?
It started off a little bit rough.
It started off rough?
Yeah.
Why did that start off rough?
We only had 2 classes out of 4.
Uh-huh.
And the Wi-Fi wasn't working, and the internet got shut down. The whole state of North Carolina internet was just acting really weird.
Eric, did you hear that? The whole state of North Carolina.
That's a whole nother situation.
We had 2 classes out of 4. But this is the part that took me out. What time does classes start, Chase?
9:30.
Class starts at 9:30. Okay. 9:30. All right. And so since class starts at 9:30, and then tell us a little bit about your day. What happens? What happens next?
My first class is at 9:30 to 10:30, which is humanities. My second class is from 10:30 to 11:30, which is math.
Mm-hmm.
Then my third class is ELA I have lunch at 11:30 to 12. Then from 12 to 1 is ELA, and then 1 to 2 is science.
So is that every day or is that
every single day?
Because I know when I was in middle school, we switched classes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you have those same classes every day.
Yeah.
And so tell everybody, how do you get those classes? What happens? Like, you go on a Zoom or what is it?
We have to accept an invite, a class invitation on our email that the school created for us. And you have to, if you don't accept that, you're basically not going to get counted for any work.
So you have to, how many times do you get the invite?
You get it only one time. So you have to keep responsible for that one invite.
You get an invite for each class?
Yes.
And so once you get the one invite for each class, that puts you into the Zoom or the Google Classroom?
It puts me in the Google Classroom, and they post the Zoom link in Google Classroom.
That's too much. So wait a minute. They posted, so it puts you in the Google Classroom. And then the Zoom link is in the Google Classroom.
Yeah.
And so how many people are in the class?
Or usually it's 20 to 25.
20, 25.
Yeah.
All right. So y'all all sitting on the Zoom?
Yeah, where all of the class is sitting on the Zoom, and the teachers teaching a class.
Wow. So now, go ahead.
Because a lot of times Google Classroom does present an opportunity to get a deeper level of protocol as it relates to protection. So it's very unlikely that people will hack into the Google Classroom to get into Zoom. But when we have, like right now, we don't have Google Classroom, we just use Zoom. So it's easier to hack into a public Zoom than it is when it is protected under like a Google Classroom.
Got it. Okay. Hey, Keisha. All right. So Chase, before you go, can you tell everybody, or can you tell any kids, what kind of advice would you give to kids who are going to school virtually? Because you only been on it, 4 days now?
Yeah.
Okay. So what would you tell any kids who going to school virtually?
Don't stress about it.
Don't stress about it. Okay, that's one.
Take notes.
Take notes. Okay.
Just don't freak out if you miss any classes. They're recorded and they're posted. And it's really all you have to know.
Really?
Yeah.
So do you like going to school virtually, or you rather be in the classroom?
I'd rather be in the classroom.
You rather be in the classroom?
Yeah. But it's all this going on.
Okay, but if it wasn't everything that was going on, you would want to be in the classroom?
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely. So do you think you're going to make good grades being home virtually?
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me. Because you're very smart, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. See, this is why he's my nephew. See? Because he's very smart.
You don't need me to all the questions.
No. He already told me he's only staying for the first few minutes. And then he told me he was leaving. So before you leave, I want everybody to know that you are a baseball player.
Yes.
And you won your second
ring.
Your second championship ring.
Yes.
What position do you play?
I play shortstop and center field.
Okay. And so you're going to be a professional baseball player, right?
Yes.
Okay. How many years you been playing baseball?
Since I was 6. 6? Yeah, 6.
Okay.
So 5.
Okay. So the world needs to watch out because they're going to see you, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Then, well, Chase, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Me and Eric going to talk a little bit more and get some advice to the adults. All right. Okay. So thanks for hanging out with your auntie. Okay. All right. Bye. Bye. See you downstairs in a little bit. Okay. All right. So, Eric, listen, this is a whole lot. Okay.
It is a whole lot.
This is a whole lot. And so hearing his perspective, you as a principal now, education is, definitely important education is the one thing that no one can ever take from you. So
Mhm.
can you share with my audience a little bit why you are so committed to education?
I am committed to education, particularly in the Black and Brown community,
Mhm,
because we are already at a disadvantage. And education for Black and Brown students has been an issue for hundreds of years. And because of that, I believe that there should be people leading schools from people who are Black and Brown. So a lot of times the motivation when I was in school, many of my administrators did not look like me.
mhm,
Many of my teachers did not look like me, particularly males
mhm,
in education.
mhm,
And I'm so committed to the work because at this point, um, historically, data driven, we understand that education for, like I said, Black and Brown minority students are extremely at a disadvantage. And research now shows that. With COVID 19, it has pushed that gap back even further. So we already had an achievement gap that we were trying to close. And now we have a bigger issue because now with a virtual platform, we are now going into the idea of accessibility. And a lot of our students do not have the accessibility that they need and the capability technology wise to have access to a quality education. We already were at a disadvantage educating them in the building, and now we're at a double level of disadvantage because we're trying to make sure that they now we're going into their personal lives, making sure that they have cable or Wi-Fi to be able to connect, that they have the ability to afford to pay for these amenities within their homes, all while trying to educate the whole child.
well, yeah, you're right. It's like you want to keep some sense of normalcy, but it's super hard right now because you have competing priorities. You
Mhm.
have to, for those parents who have to work and then homeschool their kids. I mean,
Mhm.
that's a lot of responsibility. I mean,
Mhm.
I know that it's a lot of responsibility on you as a principal. So
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about your journey to becoming a principal. Was this always something you wanted to do, or the more you got involved, with the educational system, the more you got involved with teaching and seeing the impact you were having on kids, why become a principal?
Got it. So I have a unethical approach to education. What happened was I went to school for political science and history. It was my goal and my desire and aspiration to become a lawyer. So from the time I was like 3 to the time I was about 19, my dream job was to become a lawyer. And in my sophomore year of college, I started working at a program called the Upward Bound program. And at that time, the Upward Bound program is for potential first generation college students who are from inner city. And I was just tutoring English language arts. And I really loved the opportunity to work with the students. Knowing that I wanted to not teach, but deal with students, right before I took the LSAT, I decided that I did not want to go to law school. And I didn't know how that was going to look because I did not go to school for education, but I knew that working with those inner city youth was one of the most rewarding jobs that I had. So when I graduated Temple, they hired me full time, and I became an academic advisor for that program. Um, and then I worked there for maybe a half a year or so, year and a half, and then I got an opportunity to become the dean of students at a mastery charter school, the school that I'm currently at. And the dean of students simply for mastery is a disciplinary position where you are managing student behaviors, managing the joy and humor of the school, as well as attendance and punctuality and such, and managing all the modes of operation. So lunch, dismissal, arrival, transitions, those types of things, dealing with behaviors inside and outside of the classroom. I was in that role and I excelled in that role. And within 2 years, I was asked to step into the assistant principal of school culture role, where I now managed the deans and led the disciplinary work for the school. And then my principal went on FMLA and she never came back. And my boss, my principal's boss, came to me and was like, "There's nobody else to do this job, and we want you to lead the school." And I was like, What do you mean?" Me, and I took over. I took over the school, and I am going into my third year as the principal now. I started at Pastorius at 24. I was 24 years old when I started there, and I am now 31. And I have been there for 7 years, and I have gone through multi-level management. I went from the dean to the assistant principal and then to the principal. So I have a vested interest in that particular school because of the longevity that I have with students, and data supports even in education that students cannot learn without relationship first. So I really thrive off of relationships. My graduating class for 2020, eighth graders, they were in second grade when we started, and I saw them all the way through from second grade to eighth grade, and that is a blessing to be able to see them through and also continue to help them even now.
So you said a lot that I got to unpack. Okay, you said a whole lot. All right,
let's unpack.
Yes, yes, you said a whole lot. All right. So a couple of things. So the first thing that I can appreciate that you said is that, you thought you had an idea of what you wanted to do when it came to your career. You started out with saying that, about political science and you wanted to become a lawyer. And then when you got to, I guess, so far, you realized, the relationship part, you had a vested interest. You really wanted to work with kids. How did you come to that aha moment? Did something happen? Is there a story tied to that? Or was it just, you just knew in your mind that this is the direction that I need to go and I need to move on it? Because, a lot of times that we have things in our mind, and a lot of times we'll say, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And then right when it's time to do it, you think, do I really, really want to do it? Mm-hmm. Is this the right career path for me? So was there an aha moment? Was there a story? Was there something, or was there something like a voice or to tell you, okay, you know what, this is really where you're supposed to be, not this?
Absolutely. So I think that there was a intersection of dealing with passion as well as dealing with this idea of really desiring to do what you want based off of popularity. And when you let your passion drive you, it outweighs the idea of trying to just solidify position. So when you lead and when you look for something through the lens of passion outweighs the idea of being just in charge. So when I was in college, I interned at a law firm. And they said that when you come out of law school, first year, you were making $180,000, just flat, no experience.
Just it, $180,000.
No experience, like you fresh off the bar, but $180,000. And he said, let's take you to an office. He took me to an office, and they had beds in the closet of the office. And every office had a bathroom. And he was like, that $180,000 cost you. You never know when you're staying, pulling an all-nighter. You never know when you'll sleep here. So we provided places for our partners and our workers to sleep. We also have a car service to take you to and from wherever you live, because it could be any time of the night. And for me, that was more about position opposed to passion. And when you really seek position over passion, sometimes you're not really in your intent. So for me, I had a mindset of, okay, I can make $180K. I really won't have a life. I remove myself from public interaction in some cases because that was corporate law. That was not like law where I'm with the people. That was a corporate law firm. And then I would have been about position. $180,000, not happy, not able to live and enjoy the 180K, but just being able to have position. And when we seek position over passion, sometimes we miss our greatest opportunities, because I know in like the church world, we say your gift makes room for you. And I
Mhm.
believe that 100%. But when we think about the marketplace, your passion makes room for you. So when we think about marketplace anointing and marketplace movement, it is our passion that opens up doors. And the proof in that, for church side, we'll say the Bible says this. But in the
Come on here, principal pastor.
marketplace, when we talk about the marketplace, your passion provides room for you. So I did not go through a traditional track to be a principal. I had a different experience, but now I sit in a seat that I would not have imagined 7 years ago. Because when you tap into passion, you can go anywhere. Because passion provides space for you, and it gives you a ability to not get tired of what you're doing.
That's good. Hey, Tanya. Hey, Amber. Amber said, I needed this. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Y'all, please share this video. So now, Eric, can you give us like one story about, because you said how you watched some of the kids and you were able to see them all the way through,
Mhm.
you know, and you said how relationships were important. So has there been any kids that you've become emotionally attached to?
Mhm.
When they left, you was just like, I'm glad that they're going on. I'm glad they're graduating, but wow,
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah,
proud of them, but wow, like I just the emotional attachment.
absolutely. Um, it's funny you said that. A couple of weeks ago, I was thinking about one of my students who was pretty troubled, and he had graduated from my school. And at our church, we have a group home that comes to our church. And one Sunday, he showed up at church,
Mhm,
and I didn't know that he had got put in the system after
mhm,
leaving my school. So he was working with some of the people at our church, and I hadn't seen him. And then I was asked about him maybe a month ago, and I was like, I really want to run into him. A week later, I was driving, got in my car, and I heard somebody screaming, "Mr. Langston, Mr. Langston," and it
mhm.
was him. And he was like, "I've been trying to contact you, but my phone is off. I'm living here and there, um, all types of things." So I gave him my phone number, and I said, "If you need me, you call me." And I just call me if you need me. And on Monday, I was in the middle of a Zoom call, and he texted me and was like, "I'm in trouble, um, and I'm down the street at the park, and I need some help." And I got off the Zoom call, went down to the park, and got him and did what I needed to do with him. And he's been going for my school for 4 years. But when you have that passion, passion keeps people connected. And he knew that I was very, very committed to that work. That's right, I'm telling you. I loved that Upward Bound program. I loved it, and I still love it. Matter of fact, on Tuesday night when I was live, one of the background singers was one of my students at the Upward Bound program. So that also shows about how connected and passionate you have to be. So I went and got him, fed him, made sure he was all right, sent him on his way, and said, "When you need something, you call me." The fact that he has nobody right now and he can still have a number that he can call and also get an answer, um, to me, that goes way further than a 45-minute science class, and
Yeah.
you're connected to the person. And while the science is important, students will not value the experience of the science, the humanities, the ELA, the language. They will not value it if they do not believe the person that is teaching it values them as a person.
Mhm. Cameron said he remember coming to speak to your
I,
students at Upward Bound.
I had Cameron come
Wow.
session at our symposium.
Wow. So now, Eric, before we move into the virtual piece, I want to talk a little bit about some of the community events that you've had with your school. I
Mm-hmm.
know you have the Black Men That Read.
Mm-hmm.
You've done other things. Could tell us a little bit more about that.
So, what we do realize is that there's a shortage of men in education, particularly men of color. So what I started doing was, typically February, March is what we call around Dr. Seuss's birthday. It's called Read Across America Week, and every day there is a special event that highlights literacy. Because one thing that we must do is make sure that our children are literate, and that they can read, and that they can decode and do all of those things that are necessary to keep them moving. And what I did was I wanted to show a different face to our students. A lot of times there's a book that is called Code of the Street. It
Code
is
of the Street. Okay.
written by Elijah Anderson. And what Elijah Anderson does is he goes from Germantown Avenue. He goes from the top of Germantown Avenue in Chestnut Hill and goes all the way through the city. And he talks about how the disparity of resources vary depending on where you are. So you go from Chestnut Hill to cobblestone and small shops and grass and trees to the middle of Germantown Avenue, where there is drugs and dilapidated buildings and trash and prostitution, all types of things. And he talks about this idea that for educators, it's one thing that it is not our job to change the codes of students. The code of the street really simply means this is how we survive. And a lot of times teachers teach in communities where they are not accustomed to. So they really cannot identify with the struggle of the community. And he talks about it is not our job to really dismantle their code, because the code makes them who they are. But it is our job to understand the code, to then give them resources to be able to break the code. And this code says, I don't know how to read. So because I'm in the classroom and I'm being challenged with a text that I cannot read, I am going to act out.
Wow.
And I'm acting out because I don't have home training. I'm acting out because I'm looking at this book and I cannot access the content in the book. And I'm looking at everybody else around me accessing the content. I'm looking at everybody else around me reading fluently. I'm looking at everybody decoding these words, and I'm looking at it and I cannot read. So my first instinct is to flip the book, and that gets the teacher's attention, and that is to say I need help. But because the code says we get help by showing out opposed to asking for help. And if you don't understand that, you will look at that person and say, hey, you have a problem. And particularly African-American boys, they are quick to say, we need to evaluate them. Mm-hmm. We need to test them to see if they have a learning disability. We need to test them to see if they have ADHD or ADD or ODD or OHI. There's so many things.
Wait a minute, what is OD? Wait a minute, all I know is ADHD. What are the rest of those? What do they mean?
So ADD is attention deficit disorder.
I got that one, okay.
ODD is oppositional defiant.
Okay.
OHI is other health impairment.
Okay.
And the ADHD is the hyperactivity.
Gotcha. Okay. Wow. I didn't know about the other ones. Okay.
Like, ADHD is like I'm hyper, I'm bouncing off walls, I'm all over the place. But everybody has a little bit of ADHD.
We all got a little bit. We all got a little bit.
It just plays out a little bit. We all got it.
Okay.
But I said it's this idea of really knowing where the kids are. Like, for example, I had a student when we first started, she was a firecracker. But come to find out, a couple of months before we opened, her father got murdered right at the Poppy store right in front of our school. She also lived 2 doors down from the store. So every single day that baby walks out of the door, she's reminded that that was the last place she saw her father. So when you're talking about let's get into the content today and let's look at the math manipulatives and let's get into this false content, and she's still struggling with the fact that her father was murdered right in front of her house, you got to touch that first before. And that's why I believe in educating the whole child, dealing with social, emotional well-being, as well as instruction.
Wow. 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 That was good. Wow. I didn't know about some of those things, but one thing I do know, and how you talked about certain areas, the statistics and the data backs it up to say there are certain zip codes that you live in
Mhm.
you live longer than you would in other zip codes here. And it has a lot to do with health disparities because they don't have the access to certain healthcare, places to go or whatever, or if you don't have insurance, which is not fair, but that's
Mhm.
life.
And it's also unhealthy.
Exactly
Like,
right.
cannot afford Whole Foods. They
Right.
cannot afford some of these holistic places. So if I go to Whole Foods and I got to spend $25 on a pack of chicken, and I can go and feed my kids at Wendy's for a 4 for $4, and I don't have any money, then of course it's always going to be the 4 for $4. And
Right.
it's not the fact that parents just want to do it. Some of my parents are working 2 and 3 jobs.
Mhm.
I have a large population of my parents are not biological. They are aunties or uncles or grandparents who have stepped in to take care of their nieces or nephews or great nieces or great nephews or grandchildren or great grandchildren. Um, and they can't access it. They live
Mhm.
fixed income with 4 and 5 kids in their house, no support in the middle of Germantown. It's a struggle
Wow. You're right, Tanya. Tanya said it's cheaper to eat unhealthy. That's right.
to eat unhealthy.
So, ooh,
You got
yeah.
7 kids in your house and everybody is hungry. You got growing boys and growing girls, and you're like, do I go to the market and I can't afford to do the bi-weekly? I gotta go on based off of the assistance that I'm going to give. Then
Mhm.
yes, I'm gonna let my kids eat at the Poppy store and get a hamburger or a hoagie and some chicken wings for $4 because I don't have it. And I see that even with trips. We got so bad with our trips that I shifted the mindset and that we would just ask for donations for trips because there was an inequity where I have parents that 6, 7 kids, and if the trip costs $10, $15, they don't have it. And it's inequitable to not allow them to have the access to the things that we were giving kids who did. So I removed the requirement of paying for trips. And if I did put the requirement that trips have to be paid, I already knew that there was a front load that I would cover for kids who could not go, and I would pay for them.
So now let's talk about where we are now. Virtual schooling. First of all, working virtually, for adults, I know for me, like I have to have a strategy, I have to have healthy boundaries,
Mhm.
and I have to be focused because it is so hard to it's so hard to multitask because you get distracted. But I have a dedicated workspace, and so that's what helps me. Let's talk about virtually.
Mhm.
So tell me, how can parents who have to work from home homeschool their kids? And what does what does working, schooling virtually, what does it look like at your school?
Mhm. So, at my school, students will be, and we were talking about this before we got on live, there are 2 different types of instruction that students will receive um, through our school. One is synchronous instruction. Synchronous instruction means, just like Chase, students log on and they are in front of a teacher while a teacher is performing or delivering instruction, rather, live.
Mhm.
Then we have asynchronous instruction where kids can go on and it is self-paced. So they can go on and say, I'm going to go on Clever, or I'm going to go on Zern, or I'm going to go on iReady, and I'm going to access this supplemental content that is led by myself. No one's teaching me. I'm in front of the computer and I am on a platform either for math, ELA, humanities, language, any of that, K2 early reading and literacy. They will go on and just get a dose. So the way that our schedule has been set up, Monday through actually Tuesday through Friday, they will have um, asynchronous instruction in the afternoon and synchronous instruction in the morning. So 4 days a week, our teachers will be live teaching in the morning, and then they will be released to teach. To go into self-paced asynchronous learning in the afternoon.
Wow. So I asked Chase earlier and I said, Chase, how do the kids dress up? Because you don't need to go school shopping right now, okay?
You really
So
don't.
I said, so how do the kids show up? And I also asked Chase because my brother and my sister-in-law, they sit in the room with Chase while he's being homeschooled. And I said, well, do the teachers see you or do you? My sister-in-law said, no, they don't see them, but they stay in the room to make sure that, you know, he's able to keep up. And if there's any questions, they can jump in or whatever. So now for your school, is there a dress code, you know, now that they're going to school virtually?
So I am a stickler for professionalism. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
big stickler in the workplace for professionalism. So there's a dress code for students, there's a dress code for staff, and there's a dress code for parents if they're going to be anywhere in the vicinity of the computer.
Let's break this down. Okay, give it to us.
Okay, so we here, so let's have the conversation. So
Okay.
rooms with students and and teachers and parents have walked past the computer half naked or naked or all types of and it's a distraction to
they was naked walking past the Zoom while the kids is on there.
Somebody's auntie had walked across the screen naked and
the
we
class
had to shut it down.
And the class saw.
So I saw it and they saw it. It was the view, so we had to shift it up.
Okay.
But we don't. What I am not requiring is that students are wearing their uniform. I'm not requiring that for multiple reasons. We've been out of school since March. All of my students have grown. There's some suits that I can't fit that I used to fit in March because there's been no need for me to wear the suit. So I can also assume that they can't fit their things either. And it is inequitable for me to figure
out. Mom can't have on her poom poom shorts. Okay.
It's equitable.
Said no bonnets.
No bonnets, no headscarves, no Aunt Jemimas, none of it.
So do you have to sign off on that for like a student handbook?
So I don't make them sign off on it because it's virtual, it is a professional ask. It's a strong ask. And then we use it case by case. So if it's one situation where I'm like, I need to call this parent because this is not going to do whatever. So my requirement is that kids are not in their bed. I also ask teachers not to teach from their bed. They have to be dressed. Now I know I go on Zoom dressed from the waist up. So I don't know what your pants look like. I don't know if you got ball shirts on. I don't care. But as long as they're not in pajamas, tank tops, they can wear a shirt or a t-shirt. T-shirts, there are parameters around that, making sure that it's no profanity or message of hate on there. Long as they're professional and they're ready, camera ready, without any type of logos and things that would suggest any type of inequity as it relates to diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's okay. I'm not requiring kids to wear uniform. It is insensitive in some cases to make my parents go to Flynn and O'Hara and spend $45 for a shirt when they got 3 or 4 kids, and after they get off Zoom, they don't know. I don't know if they have access to washers and dryers. If they do, it's a lot to ask. It's a lot to ask a parent to co-assist in the education of their child, make sure they have on uniform every single day, and then still have a job and a life at the same time. So for me, I told my team, we have to focus on what's in our locus of control. And for me, for our network, we have over 14,000 students. Because of access issues, almost 25% of those students never logged on from March to June. That was 3 months where 25% of our students received no instruction. To me, I am more interested in having them in a seat compared to what they have on. I need them in school. I don't care what they have on. As long as it's appropriate, I need them in the seat. And if being in the seat or putting a shirt on is going to be a deterrent from keeping them in the seat, then the shirt doesn't matter to me. I just need them in the seat.
Wow. So now in this virtual world, so tell me, what does that look like? So like for parents, like what can parents do to prepare their kids for, virtual schooling? And then also for the teachers as well. So you have both people who are teaching the kid basically, because the parent has to help with the homework now. The teacher is really trying to teach the work virtually. So what kind of steps should parents be taking to prepare their kids for virtual?
One of the first things is that they have to be honest about the process.
Mhm.
It's not easy. Chase on his first day, he's like, this is a little rocky.
He
And one of
told
the
me, he said, Bridget, he said, these teachers have no idea what they're doing. I said, don't say that on the live, though.
one thing that we have been leading our organization with, that I have been leading my particular staff with, and it's something that I would suggest parents do, is lead with grace. And this idea of we don't know it all, we're trying to figure it out, but we need some grace to figure it out. That grace allows you to be transformational by being transparent. You can't be transformational without having a level of transparency. And the first level of transparency, and I will tell a parent anytime, I am not too proud to say I don't know or I don't have all the answers. But if you work with me while I get the answers, we'll get somewhere. So then the first things parents have to do is be honest with their students. Speak about your issues or speak about your fears of this. Speak about your fears connected to why we are on a virtual platform. At this point, it is really essential that the parent builds the relational trust with the student as their student and not their child, because they are a big part of their child's education that they've never had to do before. So the same level that students have to trust the teachers professionally, there has to be a level of grace, transparency, and trust between the parent and the child.
So Tanya has a question. Tanya says, what help is being offered to the parents, doing virtual instruction? Like, are there in-services? Is there some type of training for the parents? She said Common Core math is going to call some of the parents to drink or cuss. So what kind of help are you providing for the parents?
So the way our schedule works, typically probably on Mondays, we'll use Mondays as an asynchronous day where we will allow teachers the time to have office hours, meetings with their assistant principal of instruction. There's also opportunities where we see that students may be struggling, that we are actually offering additional support. So for instance, we have about 10 students who, if they were in school and this had not happened, they would have probably been retained. But because of COVID, we did not retain them. But opposed to them having asynchronous instruction in the afternoon, they're going to have specialized, specifically designed instruction in the afternoon with a live person. So opposed to saying go online and get on Quill or get on Zern or get on Lever, get on Khan Academy, you're going to be with a teacher dealing with a lot of the supports that you need. That also plays the same hand with our students who have specialized services. Any student with a 504 plan, any student with an IEP, they will receive supplemental support as well. So students, whether they have IEP or not, and we see that there is a struggle, there are additional levels of help and resources that will be available to our students. Our teachers are contracted for the 8 hours. They are only teaching that morning slot. So we have the functionality and ability to allow them to do their own thing in terms of specifically designed or special designed instruction for students who are struggling.
Wow. So one of the things Chase told me is that they have weekly one-to-ones with their teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And that is with the one-to-ones where the teacher isn't teaching, just where they get a chance to just ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
But he said the weekly one-to-ones are not individual. So I guess it's really not a one-to-one, but it's for the entire class.
Right.
That's the particular time that's set aside to ask questions. So
Right.
Do you have like those type of sessions for the kids, and like, are those sessions where parents can hop on and ask a question or something like that as well?
We've created a culture where my parents consistently call myself, my teachers, and my assistant principals all the time. So because of that, like I said, it is very clear that our teachers are only teaching between 3 to 4 hours in the day, direct instruction, but they are contracted for 8 hours. So we are strategic with how they spend that for 3.5 to 4 hours outside of preps and lunches and stuff like that. We're strategic to make sure that we are reaching our most neediest students. So that means you got a class of 17, and based off of exit ticket data or based off of map assessments, 11 of your students are not on track to meet their grade level equivalency. Then we need to figure out how are we doing small group instruction for these 11. What scaffolds are we putting in place for these 11? While not forgetting about the other 14 who are on pace, what are we giving them to continue to go on pace?
So, Eric, so this is one of the questions that I get asked all the time as an entrepreneur. People always ask me to give a story about the good, the bad, and the ugly. So now, okay, COVID is here. Sister Rona came in that last quarter, all right, and got a grip, okay, a strong grip right now. It's not letting up, all right. So looking at last year's school year, and now you're preparing for, next school year, which is after Labor Day, if I'm not mistaken. So what can you give us a story about something good that happened, something bad that happened, and something ugly that happened, and how you bounce back?
So, something good last year that happened within my school is that we saw some very huge successes with our K2 students as it relates to early literacy. Now, as it relates to how our goals were set up, we did not meet some of those goals. But when we look at individual student growth, we saw some great growth within our students within K2. Some other successes that we saw towards the end of the year is that all of our IEPs were in compliance for the year. And that is a extreme benefit and blessing, because if you know anything about education, students that receive any types of services, lawsuits and our liability is extremely high. So a lot of times we have a goal in terms of where we want to stay within liability as it relates to lawsuits, open lawsuits. And with that idea of having all of our IEPs in compliance, while we still had lawsuits, we did not have lawsuits as it relates to us not being in compliance with the needs of students, which is a success. One of the horror stories for me
Did you have to put a kid out? Did you have to
No, one of the horror stories for me is that we had a situation that has been in litigation for several years. And it's always out of your control. And that is the part. Education, as it relates to being a principal, it is a position where you have all the power and no power at the same time.
all the power and no power at the same time?
Like, you have all the control. My name is on the cards. I am the point person. I am, for lack of a better word, every principal within our organization as it relates to their building is within right, the CEO of their building. However, it is a position that has the most power, but it also merits the least power at the same time. Meaning there's some things that are just outside of my locus of control that I cannot control. Whether I wanted to, whether it's personal for me, whether I take it home with me and can't get it off of me. Some things as the principal you would think that you can control. But being a successful leader through transformational change, you have to acknowledge and embrace the things that you cannot control. So the horror story is that sometimes you just can't control what happens. You can't make everybody happy. Even teachers, administrators, parents, students, you can't always make everybody happy, but you always should focus on what you can control.
Wow. So we got 10 more minutes. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, we got, dang, this time go by so fast. I still got more questions. All right, let me tell our viewers, if you have any questions, please send your questions and I'll read them out to Eric so we can make sure that we answer your question. So Eric, my next question to you is going to be, so now, what new initiatives, like what are you working on for this next school year that's going to keep the students engaged? What kind of plans do you have? What can we expect for this next school year?
So we are trying to be extremely strategic in how we move about keeping our students engaged outside of the academic classroom. So I'm working with some of my assistant principals now to create opportunities for virtual trips, virtual outings and games. Before we ended this past school year, we had virtual Zumba classes. We did a virtual movie where we streamed the movie from one of our administrators' computers, and kids just came into the room and watched movies. We've done all types of games. We've done Kahoot. We've done multiple things. We also have a merit mall system, which is under our token economy. So students, we do not believe in just dealing with negative behaviors, but we also believe in promoting the positive behaviors, because sometimes so caught on what kids are doing wrong that you never celebrate them for what they're doing right. So we have opportunities for kids to gain points through Kickboard, and they are able to cash out on those Kickboard points and shop at a supplier that we call Show Your Logo. They're able to pick things that Show Your Logo, they can customize them, and Show Your Logo will mail it directly to their homes. So
That's
they
good.
say you want a mug, with your name on it, with the school logo on it, and it costs $500 or $500, and the kid has $1,000 in their bank. They can buy the cup for 500, get it personalized, and it come directly to the house.
Oh, that's decent. Wow. So Eric, Yesenia, we love you too. Yesenia MacArthur. So I love both of y'all. I love her. So Eric, so now, what kind of advice, what would you tell parents? What would you tell parents they can do to help their kid, and also, help the process and preparing for the school year? What would you tell them to do besides buy school supplies? What else do they need to do?
Ask questions.
Okay.
One of the things that you have to do is be comfortable asking questions. But the caveat to asking questions is also having grace, because every question does not have an immediate answer. So for instance, I am hosting a town hall on Monday evening with all my parents. And I'm sure there's going to be a whole lot of questions that arise that I may not have an answer to. And being comfortable with the fact that it may not be an immediate answer, because this is new for all of us. My teachers have never had the mission to teach virtually 100%. I have never led a school virtually 100%. My assistant principals have never led whole teams virtually 100%, with the exception of March to June, but we thought that was temporary. We just knew we was going back to school.
Listen, no, you're going to shut down the rest of the year probably.
And kids have never had to start the new school year virtually. Kinder students, their first experience in school, they are removed from the opportunity of getting to know their beautiful school building, getting to interact with their friends. Social and emotional well-being and that connection and interaction is essential for kids to develop. And we have removed that social element from them. And it's a necessity. It's not only a necessity for kids, but that social interaction is a necessity for many adults too.
Wow.
So ask questions, be comfortable with not having immediate answers, and also trusting the process.
Wow, that's funny. Chase said that to me earlier today. He said, "Auntie, we just gotta trust the process."
This is a process that we're all learning.
Yes. Yeah. If y'all have any questions for Principal Langston, please type your questions. We have a few more minutes, and we definitely want to make sure that we are answering questions. And then we're able to help you prepare your kids for school, because this is like a whole brand new normal. And even during this process, we just got to navigate the process, trust the process, allow grace, ask questions. And I also think you have to be open and ready to receive. Because if you are open and ready to receive, no matter what you have to say, in your mind, you're not receiving anything, which means that you can't execute anything. So you definitely want to be open to, to hear what's being said, open to hear what's being taught, and ready to receive and ready to implement it. And especially for those parents who are working from home, you got to balance working from home and, teaching your kid. Like, that's a big thing. I think you should have a dedicated workspace. Doesn't have to be fancy, but you need a dedicated workspace because you want to be able to separate your work life or school life from your normal living quarters. Because I think if you don't, and they start cross-contaminating, you don't have any boundaries. And so you don't know when to turn on, when to turn off. And then you start getting, confused and disorganized. What's your thoughts around that?
I definitely agree. You have to have a structured place. And that structured place creates some sense of consistency and structure. And it also gives you an idea of like, when I'm here, I must produce. This is my place of production.
When I'm here, I must produce. Somebody put that in the comments. That's good. When I'm here, I must produce. This is my place of production. That was good.
By a place of production. And that be your hub of when I'm sitting here, I'm on my game. So like, for instance, when I'm in, all my staff can tell you this, when I am in the building on like an in-service day and the kids are not in the building, I tend to be in my office, whether I'm dressed up or not, I wear my hat backwards. And it is not a form of like, now right now it's just I'm wearing my hat, but when I'm in school, it's my ability. I sit in one space, I put my hat on, and that is like my ability. I'm in my zone. I'm not getting up until I'm done. Sometimes I'll take it off. I'm doing this, I'm doing that, but it's my safety net because for me, it's my dedicated space where I have to produce. So if I'm sitting in that seat, I don't get up until I'm done. And if I have to take a break, I take a break. But I have a designated place in my office where I have a whole conference table in my office. I have my own personal desk, but I sit at one particular seat in the entire office where I have to produce in that space. When I have time to play around, I sit all over the office. But when I don't have time to play and I'm meeting deadlines, I sit in one particular space. I got my headphones in and I got my hat on. I keep a hat in my office because that's my thing. So parents have to designate a place, just like you designate a place for your students, your kids. This is where we play. This is where school is at. Business happens here. And when you separate the two, you begin to value the space and make other people value your space.
So what are your thoughts around nutrition? Because, we definitely, I know that for me as a kid growing up, they would always tell us you need a hot breakfast before you prepare for school. And so now with this new normal, I still think breakfast is one of the most important meals of the day. So what are your thoughts around nutrition? What you eat and with your brain power, what you eat as far as making sure you're in the right mindset so that you can produce.
Yep. I think that eating at the top of the morning is extremely, extremely important. But I cannot say that without also dealing with the inequity of that, because the inequity of that is that everybody doesn't have the access to provide 3 or 4 meals a day. Or the meals that they can provide may not be what one would consider nutritious. But it is essential because my kids, for breakfast, I have kids come in eating ice cream bars. I have kids coming in eating hot Cheetos in the morning.
For breakfast?
This is regular. Now, I haven't seen that virtually, but in the building, kids are eating Takis, or kids are eating hot Cheetos and hugs and all those types of things. Because it's an access thing. Mom said, you got $5, make it work. Poppy stores don't have the best fruit and the best produce and those types of things, so they make it work. I have kids eating their hoagies at 7:45 in the morning, walking to school, eating their hoagies. And you go to Fresh Grocer, they give you those big hoagies. Kids are eating it for breakfast and for lunch. But eating at the top of the morning is essential. But knowing that we're in a urban and a low income area, I am sensitive to the fact that, and that's another thing. And I know we got to get off here, but that's another thing. We do food distribution because a lot of our kids don't have the access. So once a week, they come to the school and get some of those more healthy, nutritious things that they can carry them through the week. Because a lot of kids banked on coming to school to have breakfast.
Wow.
It's banked on coming to school to have breakfast and lunch, because it was a consistent meal for them. So
Wow.
really important to know that COVID is pushing us back even on our ability to feed our kids.
Wow. It is. It's so many moving parts. It's like a lot. I mean, this is a lot. And we definitely want our kids to perform well. We definitely want our kids to be at the top of their game because we want them to be able to get scholarships. We want them to be able to grow and be the best version of themselves. We want to make sure that we are equipping them and empowering them for success,
Yep.
especially not just with COVID, but also all the social injustice. So
Mhm.
for grades K through 8, how do you handle that? What do you say to those kids about the recent social injustice?
So I was very strategic when we experienced the George Floyd situation. I addressed our entire community. Um, I addressed our community from the sense of, hey, this is a um, this is a very difficult situation that our country and our world is facing. This is a difficult situation from our students' perspective, because they are now forced to learn from home, and now they're seeing the injustices of a racist America in front of them. So I gave them an address, not only from that, but I also gave them an address from a young African American Black man who has the task of leading an entire community and the impacts that it had on me. You cannot lead without transparency. And I shared with them that it's very scary, that I can get in my car that I honestly pay for and still be at a disadvantage. My degrees matter not. My academic prowess matters not. My ability to be a professional and lead transformational change within the organization matters not. Because at the end of the day, I am no different than George Floyd. At the end of the day, I'm no different than a Breonna Taylor. At the end of the day, I am a Black man who has made a change in his life, who is now trying to make a change in the other students' lives. But I have to lead with grace and humility and let them know that I too am impacted by this. Um, I also let them know that I am not just someone who is leading this community without an understanding of the socio-economic barriers that our students and families potentially face. Um, because a lot of times we run into that issue because sometimes there's a discrepancy in terms of, do you understand what's going on, or are you just here? And it is my goal to let parents know that I am here. I may not be from this particular section of the city, but I grew up in the same type of conditions. And that is why I'm committed to this work, because they need to see people like us succeed.
Mhm.
Uh, and they also need to hear people like us are also human. So when I'm in the mall and I see some of my students, they look like they saw ghosts, because in their mind, oh God, Mr. Langston's here. I was at the restaurant a couple of weeks ago, and one of my students, he dropped her juice. She's like, oh, you do exist outside, outside of the building, and just letting them know they need to be able to touch you and know that you are human, know that you have feelings, know that you cry, you bleed, you do all of those things, but you have to do it with a level of grace.
Wow. So I have one more question for you.
No problem.
So Tanya said, make other people value your space. Absolutely. People, absolutely.
When people don't value your space, they then limit your productivity.
That's good.
And when you are limited, when you have limited productivity, you cannot reach your maximum. So if people are not valuing your space, you limit your productivity because you're only as productive as they allow you to be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like my kids, if I'm like, daddy needs 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
If I allow them to jump in at an hour and 40 minutes, they are limiting the productivity that I can have in those 20 minutes. So I even have to train them as children. Hey, this is a sacred space. Daddy's got to do this. Daddy's got to do this. But the thing about that is, when you make people value that space, when you make commitments to value their space, you got to keep the commitment. So if I say,
Mhm.
all right, I need 20 more minutes and then I'm done. I have honored the assignment. I have honored the commitment. If their commitment now is, Daddy, I need an hour, then I need to give them the hour because they have
Mhm.
valued my space. Now I'm going into their space and I have to value that space.
That's good. So you said something about your students. Now, so what challenges have you faced being a millennial principal?
Oh, I got great answers for that. So I'm young. You're young. You're a little boy. That's the favorite one. You're a boy. Well, I got kids older than you, and it's never about my actual professional ability to execute. It's always just the fact of my face. So it's like, oh, you're young. So if I talk to a grandmother on the phone and I'm dealing with various issues that I'm calling her into the building to talk about, if they are not familiar with me. Now, luckily, I've been at the building for 7 years, so I know everybody unless they're new, and they're learning me. But if they're returning students, you know who I am, you know my number, to the point where if I call a parent, the first thing they say is, "What my kid do?" Even if it's a positive thing, is Mr. Langston, what he do? I can't come to get him. I'm at work. I'm not calling for that. I'm actually calling to say he had a really good day.
Mhm.
But the things that I face as a millennial leader is that sometimes people devalue my experience, and they potentially devalue my decision making, um, because of the idea of time. Um, and experiences teach you more than time. You
Mhm.
can have a set of experiences within a year that qualify you more than someone that has 10 years in it.
Experience teaches you. Oh, that was good. Mhm.
So their experience outweighs,
Mhm.
because if you have the experience, your experience will outlive time.
Mhm.
Got the idea is that I could be an educator for 20 years, but 11 of those years I didn't value my space. So I'm
Mhm.
only performing at maybe 7 years of productivity, even though I've been in 20 years.
Mhm.
So just because you're in a space for a time does not mean that you're actually producing at the level you need to be producing. Um,
Mhm.
so for me, I don't do a lot of talking about it, like, oh, but da, da, da. I just lead. The best way to counteract negativity is leading the right way.
Mhm.
So I don't lead by emotion. I don't lead by off just the cuff of my sleeve. I lead with tact, and I lead with the students at the center of every decision I make. So when
Mhm.
I make a decision, students are at the center of it. If students are not at the center of it, I don't make the decision. If it's not best for all of our students, it's not best for one of our students. So even though you parents don't understand, teachers don't understand sometimes, but it's what's best for the student, because I'm there to educate the whole child, and I put the students at the center of what we do. And when we get off on tangents and begin to get into personalities and but they did this, but they did that, and we don't really deal with the intrinsic idea of why we're here. Because I tell my teacher all the time, you have to check your emotions. When we were live, I would tell them, this job is selfless. We come here with baggage every day, but I am asking as the leader of this building that you leave your baggage in your car and you come into the building every day 100%. And when you get back to that car, you pick that baggage back up. I've led PDs. 2 years ago, my aunt passed away, um, and I was leading a PD um, for my staff on the welcome day, and then left the school to go make arrangements at the funeral home because I wanted to show them that you lead by example. So while I am hurting, while I am devastated, I still have a mission to these students, and I have a mission to my teachers. I'm going to successfully complete the assignment and then go and do what I need to do for myself as well. So you
Wow,
got
that's good.
to.
Wow, that's good. Wow. So Eric, Do you have your mug? You got something to toast with? You got your mug? All right.
Here today.
Come on here, Principal Langston.
Yeah.
Eric, you've been such a great guest. I have to have you back again because I want to do like a follow-up to see how this virtual thing is going.
And see what we need to do is once we get into this virtual thing, because we'll probably be there all year, I need to bring you on, you and Cameron, and we need to do like a virtual, like boss lady student edition.
Let's do it. Let's do it. I'm with it. I'm open. Let's do it.
Empowerment for my teacher. Also, we've done this like Black Men Read type of thing, but there is like that component of the women that I have not tapped into yet that I really want to tap into this year. Like Pastorius, like I want to do like a Black Girls Rock.
Let's do it virtually.
We can do it virtually.
Yep.
I'm all for it.
I am too. Just let me know. So, Eric, you have been an amazing guest, and I am so glad we got a chance to catch up here about your background, all the things you're doing. So, what advice, what parting words, they could be anything, would you like to leave with my guests before we cheers?
So, if I had to leave any advice with our listeners today and the viewers, it would be honor your space. And that goes across all levels. That goes personal, professional, secular, corporate. Just value your space. When you value your space, you open yourself up to be extremely productive and fruitful. So value the space. This virtual experience, value the space. There's something to learn there. Value the space as a parent, learning how to lead and teach your student virtually, learning how to work and be a mommy and a daddy and cleaning the house and living life. Value your space. And at this point, you have to identify your spaces and give all of your spaces an assignment. So give your spaces an assignment, value your space.
Wow. That's good. Ladies and gentlemen, we have just finished listen, hearing some great things from Eric Langston, young principal who is just like making changes, making an impact and empowering students. So we're going to definitely be checking in with him to kind of see how this virtual world is going on. We want to hear update to see how the parents are doing, to see.
Call me Monday night.
I see how the kids are showing up on the Zoom. All right. So y'all stay connected. And for those of you who missed the live broadcast, Eric, we broadcast on 3 different platforms at one time. The BB team is killing it. Okay. We're broadcasting live on Facebook and YouTube at the same time. So if you listen, if you missed it, by all means, you can watch the replay on any of our media outlets, and it will also be on our website too, as well. And I also want to say, going forward, beginning next week, we are offering advertising slots. So if you have a product or a service that you want to get in front of our audience, we are offering advertising slots and so many great things for this next quarter. We're in this virtual world. And listen, while we're in this virtual world, we're going to keep on moving forward. We're going to make changes. We're going to make an impact. And most importantly, we're going to grow and we're going to all be successful. So until next Thursday, you got your cup, Eric?
Cup.
All right. Cheers, everybody. Have an amazing weekend. And I'll see you next Thursday. Cheers.